All right, ready to have your mind blown?
I think so. Hit me.
Today, we're going all the way back to ancient Israel, to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 12.
Uh-oh, ancient texts. Some people might be thinking, what's that got to do with me?
But trust me, this deep dive is packed with some surprisingly relevant lessons for, like, how we actually live today.
Right, we're at a pivotal moment for the Israelites finally about to enter the Promised Land after, wandering in the desert for years.
Sure.
And in Deuteronomy 12, they're given this whole set of instructions on how to transition from that nomadic life to, to like a settled one.
Real, finally.
Huge emphasis on setting up a whole new system of worship.
So what's the big change? What's new?
Centralization. No more of that scattered individual worship stuff. It's all got to be in like one specific place.
One specific place.
Chosen by God. And on top of that, they're told to completely abandon their old ways of worship.
Everything.
And those are the cultures around them, too.
Wow.
Altars, pillars, groves, images.
The whole shebang. So it's about more than just, like, the physical actions, right? What's the deeper purpose behind all these rules?
What's fascinating is it wasn't just about, where they put things or what they did with them. It was about shaping their mindset, fostering unity, and really solidifying their identity as one community under one God.
So it's like creating, what, a shared cultural anchor.
Exactly.
And that was vital for people, like starting fresh in a whole new land, new way of life. Okay, but fast forward to the 21st century. We're not building altars or offering animal sacrifices. How does centralized worship translate to, like, modern life?
Think about it. The Israelites were told to focus, right? Focus their worship, avoid distractions, and put all their energy into this one central practice. That idea of, like, focused attention and intentionality, that's still super relevant for us, even if our altars are more metaphorical these days.
So, like, instead of physical offerings, our modern equivalent might be the time, the energy, the effort we put into things we really value.
Precisely. It's about asking ourselves, where are we choosing to invest our resources, our attention, our very selves? Our careers, relationships, personal growth, our communities, creative pursuits, you name it.
Just like the Israelites were told to focus their worship, we benefit from, like, having clear priorities. Right?
Totally.
You wouldn't try to hit a target by aiming in, like, 5 different directions at once.
Exactly. Focusing our energy on what truly matters, cutting out the distractions, and making sure our actions match our values. That's how we can build a fulfilling life, a life that has real meaning.
Makes sense. But what about, like, the community part? The Israelites gathered together. Doesn't that strengthen a shared identity?
Yeah.
It seems like today we're all so busy and plugged into our own little worlds. Do we even have anything like that anymore?
True. Modern life can feel pretty fragmented.
Oh, sure.
But the human need for connection, that hasn't disappeared. Think about concerts, sporting events, festivals, even a simple dinner party with friends. Those shared experiences, even in our digital age, are vital.
Yeah, I guess those shared experiences do feel different, don't they?
They remind us we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
I never thought of it that way, but it's
Yeah.
like they tap into this sense of belonging and purpose that we crave, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. And the Israelites, they totally understood that. By centralizing their worship, they were strengthening their shared identity, reinforcing their common purpose, and that connection to something greater than themselves.
It's wild how these practices from, like, thousands of years ago can still be so insightful for the stuff we're all dealing with today.
Absolutely. And we've only just started. We still need to unpack how the Israelites were told to handle the influence of other cultures.
Ooh, okay. Now I'm really intrigued.
So before we were talking about that centralized system of worship, but it went beyond just like the where.
Right.
It also involved what they didn't adopt, from the
Right.
cultures around them.
Yeah. Deuteronomy even specifically warns against, like, picking up the practices of other nations, especially anything that clashed with their beliefs. I can already see where this is going. Cultural integrity in the age of social media.
You got it. And it's crazy how relevant this ancient wisdom is, especially now. Like, think about it. The constant influx of information, trends, opinions. How do we stay true to ourselves in all that noise?
Seriously, it's a real challenge.
How do we filter what's beneficial from what might be harmful or just plain distracting?
I feel that. It's like you're constantly bombarded with messages telling you who to be, what to buy, even what to think. It's so easy to get swept up and lose sight of your own compass.
And that's where cultural integrity comes in. cultivating a strong sense of self, understanding our values, so we can make conscious choices about what we let into our lives. You can appreciate and learn from other cultures without losing sight of what's essential to you.
So it's not about shutting ourselves off or rejecting everything that's different.
No, not at all.
It's about being discerning.
Exactly. About what we choose to embrace and how we allow it to shape us. Building that filter, that inner compass.
Makes sense. I mean, you think about it, the Israelites were entering this new land with all these unfamiliar customs. Maintaining their own cultural integrity was key to preserving like their whole way of life.
Absolutely. It was about ensuring their survival.
Makes you wonder, what are our modern day cultural anchors? The things that ground us, give us that sense of belonging, and help us navigate this crazy world while like staying true to ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great question. What traditions, values, or practices do we hold dear? What helps define us and what we stand for? And then how do we protect those things in a world that's constantly trying to reshape us?
It's like we're all being challenged to create our own centralized worship, but in a way that's meaningful for our lives, our values, defining those core principles that guide our actions and choices, and holding on to them, even when everything around us feels chaotic.
Love that analogy. Because it really boils down to intentionality, right? The Israelites were intentional about their worship, about protecting their cultural integrity. And in our world, with all its distractions and competing voices, we need that same intentionality to create lives that are truly aligned with who we are at our core.
Okay, so we've got focus goals, community unity, and cultural integrity, all super relevant even after all this time. But there's one more piece I think is really powerful, and it has to do with gratitude.
For sure. Remember, they were instructed to bring their sacrifices and offerings to the central sanctuary, right?
Right.
As a tangible expression of gratitude for all the blessings they had received.
But how do we translate that to modern life? No more altars and animal sacrifices. So what are our offerings in the 21st century?
I think our offerings could look like dedicating our time, energy, or resources to things that are meaningful to us. Volunteering for a cause we believe in, maybe supporting a local charity, or even just simply expressing appreciation to the people we love.
It's about putting our gratitude into action. Not just feeling grateful, but actually doing something that shows it. Recognizing the good and actively choosing to give back, to contribute.
It's a choice. Gratitude isn't just a passive feeling, it's an active choice to acknowledge the good. And when we make that choice, it can totally shift our perspective.
Yeah.
And create a ripple effect of positivity.
It's amazing how we went from ancient altars to modern day gratitude practices. Who knew there'd be so many parallels?
Right. But it really just shows you that the core human experience hasn't changed all that much. That longing for connection, for purpose, for meaning, it's timeless, it transcends any era.
Absolutely. And that's probably why these ancient texts can still speak to us so strongly today.
They tap into something deep within us, something fundamental to our being.
Yeah, they really make you think critically about your own life, your own choices. Like, what are your sacred spaces, those areas that deserve your focused attention and intention?
Exactly. And what traditions, what practices help us connect with something bigger?
Big questions. I think those are definitely worth pondering. But before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've been talking about focus, community, cultural integrity. But with all this, I keep thinking back to that idea of centralization in Deuteronomy, like how they were supposed to all gather in one place for worship.
Right. Yeah. It is interesting how much emphasis is placed on the physical gathering.
Not just the rituals, but being together.
Yeah.
Sharing that experience as a community.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder, what's our modern equivalent of that? Do we even have those kinds of shared experiences anymore? Everything's so digital, so isolating these days.
I think we do.
Really?
Yeah, they might look different. Think about concerts or sporting events, festivals, even just having people over for dinner. Those gatherings, those moments we share, they create this sense of belonging, of connection. And that's so important.
I guess those do feel different, don't they?
They remind us that we're part of something bigger, that we're not alone. And in a world where it's so easy to feel disconnected, that can be incredibly powerful.
It's like we need those physical reminders to really ground us.
Exactly. And it's not just about the big formal gatherings either.
Oh, yeah.
Even those small everyday interactions can be huge.
Like what?
Like smiling at a stranger on the street or offering a kind word to a coworker, things like that. They might seem small, but they can actually be tiny acts of worship in their own way. Expressions of our humanity, that capacity we have for kindness, for connection.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah.
Like we're all weaving this tapestry community, one little interaction at a time. Every thread, no matter how small, it contributes to the whole thing.
I love that. It really speaks to how interconnected our lives are and the power of even the smallest gesture.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Deuteronomy 12, what's the one thing you hope people take away from it?
I hope it reminds everyone that our lives are a gift, and that we have this incredible opportunity to choose how we want to live them.
Yeah.
So let's try to make them beautiful, an offering, something that reflects our values, our beliefs, a contribution to something bigger.
Beautifully said. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you'll keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking out those truths that speak to your soul. Until next time, keep diving deep.